Today, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Marvin Thomas. Marvin Thomas has an incredible story. He's currently working for SalesForce, but his career started way before that when he decided to go to college and become a mechanical engineer. What I would love to learn from Marvin today is kind of his career journey and who he thinks his career is suited for and so on. So Marvin, thank you for being here.
Of course. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's see, when did you decide you wanted to become a mechanical engineer?
Yeah, as a child or growing up in high school, I was always very mechanical in the sense that my mom always tells me that I would take toys apart and try to put them back together. I had a very analytical mind. My dad was also very handy. He did a lot of the work around the house and always made me come along and learn as he was doing things. And so that grew that desire for me to, wanting to work with my hands more so, understanding how items are worked or how, products are put together. And so that's where the desire came from. And I decided it was between architecture and mechanical engineering. And I decided to go with mechanical engineering. And I ended up doing that for college and graduated with that degree.
And so your parents, did they also go to college?
So my parents did not go to college. My sister and I is the first generation to go to college. Yeah.
I love that. Congratulations.
Thank
So
you.
cool. So where did you go to college?
So I went to college in Michigan. It's called Andrews University. It's a small university, but the reason why I went there specifically is my family, we grew up 7-day Adventists. And that's one of the universities that has an engineering degree. The distance wasn't preferred. I'm from Florida, Michigan. I'm not used to that cold weather, but I knew that that was something I wanted to do. So it was an opportunity to move to Michigan and try something new. So
good. And so you're happy with that. It was a good experience, right?
Of course, yes.
That's outstanding. And so you got into the mechanical engineering courses and so on. And how was that hard or what was it?
Oh, extremely hard. Yes. So, in high school, I was very, things came to me very quickly. Math was something that I didn't have to try hard at, but I knew that if I put a little bit of effort, I would be able to get an A or a B. But when it came to college, there were skill sets that I didn't necessarily know that I needed in terms of best study habits, how often you should study, how long you should study, because I was always so used to like picking up things really quickly and not necessarily having to put a lot of work into being able to get an A or a B. So that's what made it difficult for me. I had to kind of rewire my brain and understand, and you're in college, you're a freshman, sophomore in college, of course. Yeah, you want to party and all that stuff. And so it wasn't until my junior and senior year that I really buckled down and I decided, like, if I'm going to get through this, then I have to absolutely understand this. And so I retrained myself and try to figure out ways that I've learned best. And that's what helped me get through it.
So do you think that now knowing that, do you think parents could have gotten you prepared for that so that you would have been further along earlier on?
Oh, 100%. And I don't fault them because there is a language barrier. My parents are from Haiti, so they moved here, and my sister and I are the first to be born in America. But with that language barrier, they did the best that they could. They didn't have a lot of resources, or they didn't understand those resources, and so of course they could have did a lot more. But I think because of that language barrier, it was hard for them to kind of figure out programs for us or figure out ways that we can get tutors and things like that. And so I would say that played a big role in the learning process that I went through.
And are you happy with the fact that you waited till your junior year to figure out these skills? I mean, is that okay now looking back?
I think so. I think with everything, with life and with school, it's like, it's a learning experience. Like,
Right.
I think that whenever I look back at my college experience, I think I was able to check every box, have fun, meet people, but also get an education. That's the number one box that you need to check out. But I think the way that it worked out perfectly. I actually did it in 5 years as opposed to 4, but I also got a minor. But most people do the minor as well within 4 years, so I can't excuse it that way. But because of the challenge that I had, it took me a little bit longer to complete. But I'm grateful for the years that I spent there. I've learned so much. I learned how to study more, and how to apply things differently. And so yeah, I mean, I think that it happened the way it's supposed to happen.
Outstanding. So you graduate from college, and then what happened?
So I graduated from college, and interestingly enough, the week before my graduation, I ended up trying to figure out what am I going to do next. And so this is a week before I graduate. What am I? And I should have thought about this way before. I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? Am I going to go home? Am I going to stay here? And so that week, I kid you not, I decided to go door to door in the town that I went to school in. And I just handed out my application. I told people I knocked on maybe 5 or 6 doors of, manufacturing companies or companies that would have my skill set or my career path. And I handed them my application, and one of them out of the 6 called me back. I went for an interview, and I ended up getting a job. I went through the interview process, and I ended up getting a verbal the day that I was graduating. So I couldn't have mapped out a perfect outcome, but that's how it happened. And I worked in manufacturing for 2 years. And then I moved on to the next role, which is kind of what I'm doing now.
So in terms of the manufacturing job, what was that?
So I worked as a tooling engineer. So basically what I did was, as a mechanical engineer, especially in college, what you learn is how to either create machines or retrofit machines. And so that's what I was doing. I was taking old parts of this machine and bringing them up to date. And so that required me to kind of update the specs of these machines. And one of the tools that we use as an engineer is a software called Autodesk or Autodesk Inventor. And basically it's 3D modeling. And so I can use a computer, I can program it to say, this is what model I want to create. And then I'll send that sketch to the manufacturer or the tooling team. And then they would create the actual model, the metal model, and then they would retrofit that into the machine. So that would be my day-to-day, is looking at drawings and schematics and different machines, and then figuring out how to update those machines.
Outstanding. And so then I guess after 2 years, you decided you had enough of that. Is that what happened?
Well, there was something that was lacking in that specific role, which led to my next role. But the thing that was lacking is that interaction with that human interaction. I'm a very, I would say I'm kind of introverted, but I'm also, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the challenge of having to talk to people. I don't like the build up to it. Like, oh, I know I have to talk to this person. I don't like that build up. But once I'm in it, there's just something that happens. I really enjoy that experience. And that's what I was missing from that role, because it was just me and the computer most of the day. Every now and then I would talk to others, but for the most part, it was me and the computer. And I lacked that sense of communication or interactions with others.
I see. So so then you left. So did you just apply to Salesforce, or what'd you do?
No, so there was a couple of roles between that first job in Salesforce, but the role that I'm in now, or what I would define myself as, is a solution engineer or a sales engineer. They also say a solution consultant. And so basically, the first role that I started off with is so backing up, I met my wife in Michigan, Annette, and you spoke to her, but she wanted to move back to California. So that was one criteria that I wanted to check off, because I knew I wanted to do something different. And so I started looking up roles in California, and I ended up coming across this interesting role. The thing that stuck out to me was the engineering aspect, but it was called a solution engineer. And I had no idea what that even was, but going through the interview process, that's when I kind of learned more about what the role was. But the other big thing that stuck out is that you're interacting with customers. And so that started fulfilling that box of, oh, I'm getting to also use my technical experience, but I get to have the opportunity to speak with customers. I'm really engaged now. I really want to understand what this role is about. And so going through the interview process, I ended up getting the role, which allowed me to move to California. And from there, I moved from that position, solution engineer. I spent a year there, and then I moved to a project management software, and I worked there for a year, and then I ended up at Salesforce. So there was a couple of jobs in
Oh,
between then,
wow.
but yeah, it led up to Salesforce because I started using Salesforce more and more as an engineer, and then starting to understand it. And then somebody reached out to me via LinkedIn and said, hey, we're looking for a solution engineer in California, in the Irvine area. Would you be interested in that role? I was connected with that person at a previous role, and that's how I was able to come in to Salesforce.
Oh, yay. Good old LinkedIn. I'm such a
Yep.
LinkedIn advocate.
Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
So you must have beaten out a lot of people to get those jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely it's an interesting role in the sense I always hear that it's hard to find someone for that role because you have to be both very technical. It's a very technical role, but you also have to be able to interact with CEOs or interact with CTOs or IT or even sales executives. So you have to be able to speak the language and be able to hold yourself in a conversation, run a meeting, but also be very technical enough to explain it, the solution or the software, to convince the customer like, hey, I can see this, improving our workflow, improving our business. I would love to purchase this product.
Ah, fascinating. So you
Yeah,
somewhere developed really good communication skills.
yeah, yeah. Yep. Over
That's
the
good.
years. Yeah.
Okay, so today you work for Salesforce, and what's your day-to-day like for that?
Yeah, so my day to day with Salesforce is, like I mentioned a little bit, is interacting with customers. And so the way it works is I have a team of 6 account executives or sales managers or sales reps, and they will source out different businesses to look for opportunities to sell Salesforce to them. So, and they do that with marketing, whatever it may be. And then when the deal gets to a certain point, they will bring a solution engineer in, like myself, to say, hey, can you show them a proof of concept of um, how can Salesforce improve their workflow, or how can it enhance their business? And so Salesforce is very flexible in the sense that it ranges on all different industries. And so my job is to build out a storyboard or a story to show them the day in the life of how Salesforce would work for them. And so
Wow.
this involves sitting down with them. So I have a discovery call, an hour-long discovery call, where I dig deep into how do they run their business? Where do their leads come from? Who talks to them? How often do they talk to that lead? And then what's their process within their sales process? And from there, I go back to the drawing board and I spend some time building out that demo based off of their industry specifically. And then I show them, hey, I'm you. Let me walk you through what your experience could be like if you were to purchase Salesforce. And so I'll show them based off of the challenges that they mentioned of how can Salesforce transition the way that they're doing things to allow their team to move quickly and gain more business and momentum.
Now, are you actually writing the code, or somebody else doing that?
So Salesforce is very configurable. So there's a little bit of code that I have to do, but for the most part, it's really more so drag and drop. So think
Oh,
of like a Squarespace, creating a website, or it's that type of
no, that's
level
great.
of technical, but there's a little bit of coding, but for the most part, it's really configurable, very easy to use.
So what types of people should not do what you do today?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Like I said, it's a very technical role. So if you don't like to get into the weeds, if you're not curious on the technical side, like how things work, I don't know if this is a great role, because you may be a great communicator, but it's a little bit different when you communicate how a solution works. You have to first make it simple enough for them to understand, but you also have to make it you have to make it feel familiar to them, but very simple. So the solution could be very technical, but I need to be able to translate that. Like, no, you don't have to worry about all the technical stuff as an end user. You just have to worry about clicking here, going here. Oh, this is allowing me to automate this. I can get an automated notification telling me to reach back out. So I would say that if you don't see yourself as like a super technical person or curious on the technical side, then this might not be the right role for you.
Ah, very interesting. And is this your end all passion in life, or what's your passion in life?
Yeah, that's very, very great question, because that's something that I've been, working on for a while. I've been at Salesforce for 4 years now, and I really enjoy working there. But I will say that I've gone through a period where we have a 2-year-old, and through that process, I realized before we had our 2-year-old that I was all in 100%, like putting in, 60 hours a week, always in the weeds, very technical, creating all these demonstrations for customers. But what I realized when my son was born, that Salesforce gave us Salesforce gives you paternity leave of 6 months. And
Oh,
so I took the full 6 months. And through that experience, while I was helping my wife with our newborn, I realized that I was so attached to work that it became my life. And it made me go on to autopilot, and I didn't even realize it. And so with that, I started picking up, within that 6 months, I picked up my old camera, which I used to film every now and then. I've done like friends' weddings and things like that, but nothing super serious. And I started to pick up my camera a little bit more since I had a little bit more free time. I was filming my son. I wanted to capture those moments. But then I realized how passionate I was about the process of learning these different skill sets as a photographer or videographer. And so I would say that my passion is kind of split 50-50. I really enjoy working at Salesforce. It provides me with so many skill sets of communicating, understanding the industry, learning about other people's stories, but also it's allowed me to apply those skill sets to the other passion that I have, which is in telling stories, but through video. And so, I've created a YouTube page now where it's more so to document the journey that I'm going through, but I want that for my son specifically, because I want him to see that I want him to see certain things about his father where it's visual, it's right there. He can always go back and see, where was my dad? Where was his mind at 33? So it's poetry, it's visuals, it's cinematography, it's things that inspire me. But it's more so a novel so that I can share with my son at any point. And I want him to be curious and be like, hey, what were you talking about here? And I could sit down with him, we can watch the video together, and I can explain to him, where was I at that age? And so that's the whole idea. But I would say my passion splits between the two, working at Salesforce, as well as diving into this passion of creating visuals and telling stories on camera.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Wow. That's a very diverse mindset, right? To be able to do those two is really cool. I admire you for that. So let's see, is there any advice you want to give a young person who's maybe starting college about how to pick a career, or any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I would say my big thing is enjoy the process, enjoy the moment. We always get worried about what's next, that we forget to live in the moment. And so that would be my advice to a student, like overall advice. But when I think about career, I would say don't chase what your parents are telling you to chase. Don't chase where you feel like you would make the most money. Don't chase aspects of what you see your friends are doing. I would say try to find something that you're passionate about. And you won't be passionate about everything. And there will be things that you won't be super successful at that you're passionate about. But find some way to blend your passion with your career, because that's what keeps you going and that's what keeps you motivated when you enjoy the process, not necessarily the title or the job or what's next. And so I'd say combining living in the moment, but find something that you're passionate about, even if there's a glimpse of what you're passionate about and a particular career, I would say go for that, because that's when you'll start feeling connected to what you're doing. And that's what's going to drive you beyond just the success of, oh, what's next, or where can I take my career?
Funny, yeah, I mean, you're sort of singing to the choir, because one of the things that I say is, if you're in a job currently that you don't love, pay attention to the pieces of it that you do love, because those pieces you can take to the next job, or you can find a job that has more of those pieces. So that's just great advice. I love that. Thank you. Now, are you willing to, if somebody wants to reach out to you and pick your brain a little bit, is there somewhere they can reach you?
Yes, of course. I don't know, like an email, like what?
Yeah, email would be great.
Yeah, you can email me at marvin.thomas@salesforce.com. I would say that's the easiest one to remember.
Okay, great. I don't think you're going to get barraged with emails, but you never know. There might be somebody out there that would love to get your input on something, and it would be really nice of you to help them out.
Of course, I'm more than happy to.
Thank you. Well, Marvin, you're so wonderful to spend some time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course.
All right. Well, best to you. And oh, do you want to tell us your YouTube channel while we're still here?
Yes, it's called the Thomas Gallery.
Oh, nice. That sounds very professional. Thomas Gallery. I like that. Okay, so we can look at that on YouTube and see your life story a little bit.
Of course. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Marvin. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.